Hey there, teachers. Welcome to School of Tomorrow. As you know, I've just started a new summer school format, and it's it's good that it's summer school because these kids are, say, average eighth grade. Let's just say average eighth grade, and there's no reason to sort of browbeat them into establishing a footprint on the internet when many of them are like legal minors, right? It's not important that they themselves do everything that's being demonstrated. They can. The option is there. And I talk them through all the steps and showcase the steps for getting this whole Jupyter Notebooks up and running. But the GitHub part, where you create your own repo, as I have done, as I will showcase to them, that I would say that's a teacher role, and it can be a student role. And as the student gets older and more confident, and they want to have their own repo, then that's part of the whole process of maturation, I would say. But summer camp or summer school is a good context for this material because of the low pressure or no pressure. On the other hand, they are eager. They are eager to jump into Python. And what we're doing is previewing all of high school in terms of its mathematical content. But again, because this is modeled as a futuristic, not a retro high school, we play on the movie House of Tomorrow and do School of Tomorrow and dive into the Bucky stuff. In other words, in fact, I'm in this book club right now called Trim Tab Book Club, where we're going through this book. This book is posthumously assembled by Fuller's adjuvant, Kiyoshi Kuramiya. And in this channel, I've had a lot of information and discussion about Kiyoshi, who I hung out with in Philadelphia a few times, like maybe three times. Intense meetups because he was, a deep and he was an activist who worked with Martin Luther King. Not just like the full spectrum of civil rights was his focus, and he found a lot. He wanted to collaborate with Bucky a lot. Fuller is a great thinker of the 1900s. In my school, it would be ridiculous to teach American history and leave out Bucky. We would never think of that as like you just skipped a lot of stuff if you did that. Too much. You can't call it a curriculum without that. But that's just like my Quaker. That's my Quaker school ethics there, or sense of aesthetics, whatever. So let's take a quick example. I've been scrolling through this. I've been doing this talk for a couple YouTubes here. And what we're going to look at tonight, okay, is sigma notation. Because I think you'll all agree high school math has a lot of sigma notation already. Some of the stuff I'm doing is not commonly taught, because of where we're at historically, but sigma notation is pretty old. It's been around a while. I'm talking about this Greek letter sigma here. Maybe in a frat or sorority situation, you would know it as a Greek letter. And it is a Greek letter, ancient Greek letter, and it's a capital sigma. Small sigma looks different. I show it here, okay? But where am I getting these letters? Like, did I cut and paste this from somewhere? Is this a picture, a GIF, PNG, JPEG? What? What is this? And I can look behind the scenes, and between a sandwich of dollar signs is some expression here. Something ordinary keyboard can do. Okay, so this is ordinary keyboard mapped to, or I should say converted to, rendered as actual math notation. Like what we're just looking at between the dollar signs converts to this sort of math textbooky stuff. We call that tech or LaTeX. You've got the funny spelling of it, which shows, or the funny lettering, the trademark lettering of LaTeX shows in its very creation as what it can do, what it is. It's typography. The detailed kind of typography you need to do mathematics is embedded in a Jupyter notebook. So we explore expanding series and do some more of these identities, right? And of course, we don't go to infinity in our particular situation with Python, but what we do is we go as far as we like to the power of any human for sure, so we're not being left behind when we actually crank through these at high speed. We'll do that. We'll do that to verify, say, an expression, to see that it's converging the way it's advertised, something like that. So I recommend high precision, like decimal type. I do the same things with the fraction type. So there's a little difference from ordinary homegrown sort of pre-computer math with non-executable notations and so on. In that we're looking at the types of number types, and they don't correspond exactly with. It's not that we avoid talking about the categories of like real number and so forth, but we have to admit that a floating point is not a real number, and nor is an arbitrary precision number really a real number. In fact, we don't really have real numbers in the physical world, right? So we call them real, but we can focus on what the computers actually implement as its own types, right? So there's the computer science approach and the math approach in the same curriculum. And this is what we've been talking about doing for a long time, and one of the role model textbooks or book used at Phillips Andover as a textbook at some point, because the authors worked there as well, is this one, Mathematics for the Digital Age and Programming in Python. You can go back and get this second edition. I think they've got a more up-to-date one even, perhaps, since this. I should just click on Maria Litvin and see what other books, right? There's Java, coding in Python. Okay, they've done a bunch. Okay, there's a whole bunch of books that they've done with different languages and stuff. Here's bits and chips. All right, so we're in that ballpark, but then we're also laying a foundation in our spatial geometry for our approach to American history, which again, it would be ludicrous to not include all these concepts and show how they're integrated in the poetics, the engineering poetics of late American transcendentalism. That's high school talk, but that's literature talk. Literature chalk and talk. So we're going to chalk and talk about American lit and history and have a synchronized math curriculum. In other words, we know in the math world, because the same faculty design all of these. Like we work together as faculty to integrate. So clearly, if we know that the Bucky stuff is going to be front and center in history and literature here and there, not always, but here and there, then yes, of course, in the math sections, we reinforce the concepts that are going to be needed then. That's just makes sense. But looking at cryptography and public key and all that, same deal, right? Looking at high school in general, same deal. How do you interpret these funny Greek letters, and how do you re-express what they're showing you in a computer language? Those kind of things are what's coming up, because we don't divorce math from coding. That was an old idea. That was like 1900s. Serious schools do not do that anymore. It's all integrated, like I'm showing you here. Now, I call it futuristic, but honestly, I don't. I think it's more the other schools that don't do this are totally retro dino. So this is contemporary. This is what schools should have been years ago. But I also say it's futuristic because I'm accommodating when in Rome, right? When you're surrounded by the slow corporate schools, then an American school stands out, I have to say. All right, talk to you soon.